All right, good day. This is Doyle Bueller with the Breaking Digital podcast. Today I'm with the amazing CEO, Tony Nash. Um, he's the CEO of Booktopia, and if you're not sure who that is, you obviously haven't been to Australia, but it's Australia's largest online bookstore. And when I say large, I'm talking big. We're talking $100 million turnover. We're talking BRW Fast 100 for 7 years. We're talking 27 million books that are in stock, if you can imagine those numbers. I talked with Tony about his strategy, about how to develop his digital leadership. We talk about the industry of books, and we talk about the experience of digital and how to sort of progress to the next steps. And obviously, one of the big issues on the mind of everyone in the industry, at least in Australia, is Amazon is coming. So Tony shares some great insights in terms of what they're preparing for, and how they're going to be able to manage that competitor position because of where they are and what they're doing and how they've been able to bootstrap their business. So fascinating discovery of how to become the biggest online retailer in Australia, coming up next with Tony Nash.
Overwhelmed with online or just wanting to learn more about how you can build a successful business amidst all of the self-appointed gurus, big buzzwords and empty promises? The Breaking Digital podcast by Doyle Bueller tells you exactly what smart entrepreneurs need to know to escape the clutter, get clear of the confusion, and pass the bullshit of building and growing a successful business online. It's about digital leadership and delivering the best value for your business online to your audience. Now, here's your host and author of the book on digital leadership and online marketing, The Digital Delusion, Doyle Bueller.
Welcome back. Today I'm with Tony Nash, who is the CEO of Booktopia, which is Australia's largest online bookstore. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks, Doyle.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you here. So tell me a bit about yourself, Tony. How did you get into the digital space?
Well, I've been involved in IT for over 30 years. I was a computer programmer in the mid-'80s, not a very good one. So I got
Okay.
into selling computers and then into recruitment for the computing industry. And I was in that for 14 years. So a lot of IT experience. And in the mid-'90s, I set up my own recruitment agency, and it was in the early days of the internet, and I set it up on the net, and I would go out and tell people I'm an internet recruitment agency, and the first question I got asked was, "What's the internet?"
What's the internet?
I had to
Yeah.
explain the internet before I could talk about my IT recruitment services. So
Oh, okay.
I've been involved in it for a long time, and that business grew, and I convinced my brother and my brother-in-law and my sister to join me, and together we built that up to about 35 people. And then
Oh, wow.
we sold that to focus on some chat software that we had built for our recruitment business. And we thought that we'd make our fortune with this chat software because the dot-com boom was going crazy at the end of the 90s. And then
Yeah.
after doing that for a short period, the huge dot-com crash happened in the early 2000s, and we got caught out. We weren't making any money, couldn't pay ourselves a salary, and Google had been going for a few years. And I said to a web designer, "How do you get to the top of Google? Like, if you're at the top of Google when someone did a search for chat software, maybe we'd make more sales." So we did that, and we got to the top of Google, and then that prompted us to do SEO projects for other companies, and we quickly morphed from this failing chat software company into a surviving and then thriving SEO internet marketing agency. And then in 2003, we did a job for a bookshop to get them to the top of Google, and then that introduced us to the book industry. And I decided to set up my own bookshop, which we did online through a third party. They managed the website and fulfilled all the orders, and all I had to do was drive traffic.
Yeah.
And I started on a budget of $10 per day. So it was an evening project. We were still doing our internet marketing, and took 3 days to sell the first book. And by the end of the month, I'd done a couple of $1,000s worth of sales. And by the fourth month, I was up to $30,000 a month. By the end of the year, $100,000 a month. And
Wow.
by the end of 2 years, $200,000 a month. So there was no grand plan that we were going to set up a an online bookstore and we were going to be the biggest in Australia, etc. It was just simply, one step after another. We just kept focusing on what customers wanted, and that then led us to being successful and get further and further ahead of everyone else. And today we will turn over in a couple of months. Our end of financial year is the end of June, and we'll turn over just over 100 million.
Wow.
We've got 150 staff. We've got 130,000 in-stock titles out of the 5 million we keep on our website. We've got 700,000 books ready to ship from our 13,000 square metre or 130,000 square foot distribution centre here in the centre of Sydney. So it's been quite a journey, and we've ended up being the biggest in Australia.
How would you compare to other sort of bookstores around the world, like online bookstores? Like, obviously the juggernaut is Amazon. Are there other sort of online book retailers in other parts of the world that you kind of can compare us with?
There are. We don't really cross over too much in terms of sharing ideas or watching them, because they're
Yeah.
in there. Like, I know there's a big one in Holland, and some of the Scandinavian countries. In the UK, there was Book Depository, but Amazon bought them in 2011. In the US, it's really been Amazon, and so
Yeah.
and the thing about Amazon, I mean, it's getting more and more part of the media and the dialogue here, of course, because they're on their way. But Amazon really is everything to everyone, and when you're one thing to one vertical, which is what Booktopia is in terms of books. I mean, we do sell a few other things, but well over 90% of what we ship is a physical book, and then we have our ebooks as well. But books, ebooks, audiobooks. When you're one thing to one vertical, you can be really good at it. And of course, I mean, I'm talking to you today from my phone, so I've got a very small screen, and it's the way that we're engaging. And when you've got a small screen to communicate and to connect with the end customer, there's not much real estate to work with. Bigger on a tablet, even bigger on a computer screen. So when you're one thing to one group, it is easier to connect with the consumer. And these days, for us, it's probably half of the people that transact with us or engage with us are using their mobile device.
Yeah, yeah. So do you foresee Booktopia moving into other verticals, not just books, sort of building up a broader portfolio, or?
We have done that. We've been built with some magazines, stationery, games, toys, puzzles. But the way that we talk about those is they're like one natural deviation away from books. So walking into a traditional bookshop and seeing some games and puzzles or some stationery was never like, oh, that's not that's expected. Versus walking into a bookshop and seeing umbrellas and baby prams, which is like, what are they doing here? So for us, it's really about the books. And now that Amazon is coming to Australia in the next couple of years, definitely I would suggest by the beginning of 2019. The more that we focus on books, I think the easier it is. When you're turning over 100 million in books and you want to get to 110 million, 120 million, it's much easier than trying to build another line of product and get to 10 to 20 million in another line of product, because you have to have the same amount of effort in selling that product as you would to sell books.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about Amazon, like, how is that going to affect sort of the marketplace that you're obviously dominating at this point in time? Do you have a plan in place to kind of defend your territory, or just kind of let things happen, or what are your thoughts on that?
We're definitely preparing. I mean, everyone should be. It's going to change. It's going to disrupt the whole nature of doing business. However, let's keep it in perspective. I mean, Australian online retail, according to the NORSI, which is the National Online Retailer Sales Index, says that we're 7%. Online sales in Australia are 7% of all retail sales. So Online sales are around 21 billion, which I think works out to be around $270 billion in retail sales. And if Amazon was to come in and get to 6 billion, 7 billion, there's still quite a small percentage and there's a lot left for everyone else. So we've got to keep it in perspective. But we feel that Amazon could come in and take a half of the book industry, which is a $2.4 billion industry. But that leaves a half or so for everyone else, which is still well over $1 billion. So there is, there's no point in freaking out. You can still kind of have your spot in the world. I think it will change for some of the physical stores that have been surviving and perhaps not thriving, and therefore they may lose a portion of their sales to Amazon, and therefore with continued losses, they'd probably look at that and going, all right, it's time to shut up shop. But our goal has always been about the customer, focusing on the customer. So fast delivery, holding everything in stock. If we can compete with Amazon at that level in terms of speed of delivery, which we would be able to do at the moment, and have the range that we have, and if we can be in the ballpark in terms of pricing, and focus on Australian content, Australian authors, that's our area that people can rely on us for that, then we've differentiated ourselves from Amazon. So we still will do things, and obviously it's some of the things we'd like to keep to ourselves and not be so open, but it's just doing the things that add value. That's the key to being a successful business. It has been for thousands of years, from when people first started opening up a shop. How do you add value? For us, it's about book lovers wanting to find books that they want to read, and they didn't know they wanted to read. They came to us and they discovered something. Most of the sales on Amazon for books happen because the person knew what they wanted and they went there to make that transaction, and they bought it because it was at a good price and they could get a good delivery.
Do you think that's, though, where some book resellers, retail but also online, have kind of missed the boat? Like you've clearly about value and how to develop that value for your customers, which is fantastic. But there's been a lot of blaming of the economy and that sort of thing on some of the book failures across Australia. Do you feel that some of these book retailers have maybe lost the plot and haven't been focusing on value or focusing on something else?
That's a tough one. I mean, the thing is that most of the book retailers in Australia and probably around the world are very passionate about reading and very passionate about books. They wanted to own a bookshop. They wanted to be involved in books. That's why they got in the first place, because they were avid readers. To give you an insight into part of one of the streams of our success was I noticed that very early on. And I could see that our customers were coming to our website and buying romance books. They loved to read romance, and they were voracious readers. And I could see that if we held more of the stock in the romance genre, we were making more sales. And what I noticed was that normal bookshops didn't hold any romance stock because they didn't like to read it, and they couldn't put their hand on heart and go, look, this is a great book, because they just couldn't endorse it because it's not something that they were passionate about. So for us, having romance books was important. So therefore, I can tell you from one aspect, it's about booksellers being authentic about their endorsements, and they will still do that. I think good bookshops will continue to survive. I was in a bookshop in London a month ago. I was there for the London Book Fair in South Kensington, and I walked in. And it's a nice shop, great selection of books. It had fiction, it had a lot of non-fiction, a lot of coffee table books. And the two girls were sitting behind the counter. It was a Monday, so it wasn't like that's not a peak day in the book industry, because normally the weekend is the busiest, and that's generally when the owner works there, and he or she will take the Monday or Tuesday off. And the girls just sat behind the counter looking at their phones, never got up, never engaged with me, never asked, oh, can I help you at all? Or is there anything you're looking for? That kind of business will not survive. In fact, when I first started Booktopia in 2004, I went into a Borders shop over 3 days to do my research. Not one person came up to me in 8 hours over 3 days.
Really?
Now,
wow.
Yeah. And what I worked out was, there's the books. We know how to pick them. You find what you're looking for, and we'll take your money at the cash register. So you got to add value. You got to be engaging with the customer. They've walked into your shop. You've got to. That's the key, and you got to do it every single time. You got to build relationships. So when someone is thinking of buying a book and they go, yeah, online, Booktopia, Amazon, there's just too much to choose from. I'm just going to go into my local shop. They know me, they know what I look for, and they'll be able to point me in the right direction. It's incumbent upon Booktopia to try and emulate that as best we can. And that's why we employ book experts who are merchandising our site. We're not relying necessarily on algorithms. The algorithms all sit back behind the merchandising that is being done. Yet a new author with a new book that has been marked possibly to win an award will never be at the top of the search results in it for an algorithm. You have to you've got to know your industry, and you've got to be able to tweak your site and merchandise your site to ensure that when people are browsing that they go, wow, this feels like a bookshop. So our job is really to try and emulate what a good bookshop would do, where someone's talking face to face, without the fact that we can't do that.
Yeah, so you're trying to create this digital experience that can be hard to translate. What are some of the other things that you've found help sort of in that digital retail environment to move people towards that purchase?
That's a really great question. So one of the things that we don't do is we don't have people going off on tangents. So um, if you're finding what you're looking for and you're adding stuff to your cart, make it as smooth as it can be to go straight through to thank you for your order. Try to, would you like fries with that kind of thinking is potentially could when you're online could actually deviate you away from the person completing the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that you get that conversion rate extremely high. Our conversion rate is one of the highest in the world.
Oh, really?
And that's because we know what I can tell you is that the average is 2% in online retail globally. 4.4% means you're in the top 20%, and we're well above that. So
okay.
So making sure that you're converting when people are coming to you, that your conversion rate. We bought Angus and Robertson, which is a 130-year-old Australian iconic brand, in 2015. And so we now have two businesses. We've got Booktopia website and we've got the Angus and Robertson website. Their conversion rate was extremely low. So for every 100 people that were walking in the store, probably, I don't know, they were converting half of what we were converting. So we put our expertise towards the A&R website to make sure that they're getting higher and higher conversions, because you're getting the people to come to you, but they're just not buying. So now their conversion rate is much, much higher. Not as high as ours yet, but it's on the way, and that's critical in the digital space.
Would you say you've sort of perfected that process then, or do you still have a lot of learning and adaptation as well to continue developing that conversion rate?
I was reading Jeff Bezos's shareholder message the other day, the 2017 message, and he always attaches to the back of his annual message the one that he wrote in 1997 when they listed on the NASDAQ or on the New York Stock Exchange, and so he talks now about the internet being day one, and it's still day one, and that mindset about that it's you just can't assume anything. It's day one of the internet, or it's week one, or it's year one of the internet. And in terms of retail, the amount of internet retail that we had versus traditional retail, 20 years versus 4,000 years, it really is. So no assumptions. Don't assume that you're there. Constantly challenge it, check it, question it. We don't spend a lot of time of really looking at our competitors. We don't kind of watch. I was an athlete when I was younger. You can't tell that today. I realize
okay.
that. But I was a decathlete, and so as a decathlete, is basically the athletics you do when you're not good at anything. That's the truth of it. And you're
And
doing,
that's the inside track, right?
yeah, that's, so you're just kind of, you're a jack of all trades. So, but the one thing that I was good at was the 100 meters. And so I could run at about 11 flat. And for a decathlete, that was, reasonably quick. It was no Olympic level, because those guys run low tens. But you do get trained not to look to your side. So as you're running and you look to your side to see where the others are, it slows you down. But if you can use your peripheral vision to look and see, oh, I can kind of feel where my competitors are. They're out there somewhere. That's the same kind of philosophy that we use in terms of keeping an eye on our competitors through peripheral vision. So not by focusing on them, because if you focus on them, they'll slow you down. Now, if someone's out in front and you're running behind, which quite often was the case if I was running in a normal race, you know exactly where your competitors are. They're 10, 15, maybe even 20 meters ahead of you. If I was racing against Usain Bolt, it would have been 30 or 40 meters. So the you know where your competitors are because you're looking ahead and you can see them right there. But if you are out in front, which is where we are in terms of local online retail of books in Australia, then you need to use your peripheral vision.
Do you see any sort of existing incumbent that might overtake you at some point, notwithstanding the Amazon equation, but is there other activity in the digital space that it's like, oh, these guys might be onto something too?
We're turning over 100 million, and I think second is turning over 20 million. So it's quite a bit of daylight between us and everybody else. No one else has invested in the automation. We've got millions of dollars of automation, and I'm talking about conveyors, automatic packing machines, scanning equipment, weighing machines. We've spent millions here in our 13,000 square meters. No one else has done that, and therefore our ability to be able to get tens of thousands of individual units out per day is within our realm. So we don't have once you start scaling, you've got to be able to deliver, and if you can't deliver on the demand, then you get caught out, and that's there's no one there. That's why Amazon coming in is the key. They're the ones that are going to be able to match us. They're going to be able to do better than us. So our job is to try and grab the coattails of them, and as they, one of the stats that is running around is that 7%. Well, we know 7% of all sales in Australia happen online. In the US and in Europe, it's 15 to 20%. So simply by Amazon coming here, more people will go, yeah, maybe I will buy online, or everyone's buying online. I might buy online too. And so that 7% hopefully will grow to the 15 to 20%. Therefore, the size of the pie is going to grow, and therefore our segment of that, our slice of the pie is going to grow too. So we may not be getting an increase in our percentage, but if the pie is increasing, then we'll be increasing. So it's about, it's an interesting times with Amazon on their way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But they've given us good time. Think about it. We've always expected them to come.
Yeah.
I've been asked for over a decade.
Really?
What do you think about Amazon coming to Australia? So everything that we do is like, well, we better get ready for Amazon. So, and they've given us a fair amount of lead time. I think we've got 2 years for them to really be here and operational. They're going to be building some very, very big sheds. We've got a 13,000 square meter shed here in Sydney, and they're going to have a 100,000 square meter or 85,000 square. It's just massive buildings, and to get that fully operational, tweaked, it will take time. Even for Amazon, it will take time to smooth everything out. So I'm looking for disruption is good. It's like things will change. You can think of the negative and all the negatives that come with that, or just what are the opportunities? What are your opportunities? One of the things that I've learned through my travels is that Amazon doesn't really like to do anything hard. So they'll outsource it. And what I mean by that is, for example, we buy the overstocks from publishers that there is a lot of around the world, and we have over 18,000 of our in-stock titles that we've bought from the overstocks. They have to be hand curated. They've got to be They've got to be scanned into the system because they're not necessarily available on a data feed, which is how Amazon and Booktopia operate. You've got to put a lot of personal effort into to sell them. The way that Amazon sells the remainder product is that they get um, booksellers or bookshops or even just general people to put them onto the Amazon marketplace, and then they take their percentage, whatever 15% of whatever it is that they charge someone to sell something on their site, and that's how they do that. So if you're willing to put in the effort to do something that they're not willing to do, there's opportunities there. And they can't do everything well. They're so big and they're doing so many things that they simply have got to have procedures and systems that rule things in and rule things out.
So, just a sort of hypothetical question: would they just say, "Hey, we've got this. There's this amazing business in Australia right now, kicking some serious digital butt with their bookstore, Booktopia. Why don't we just buy them? Because hey, we do like to do things easier." Is that
Mm.
sort of a possibility? Would you ever entertain that? Would you say no, thanks, we're on our own course?
I mean, no one would say no. I follow the world of sports, and you can see players changing teams because someone paid them
Yeah,
more. So
yeah.
um,
So it's not out of the
behind
question.
but behind every business there are shareholders,
Yes.
and in our business there's also shareholders. So you wouldn't say no to everything, um, but we're not in a position where we have to say yes. So we're not in a position where we're going, geez, this is not going to be good. We better just bail out now, and now that Amazon's here, so we're ready to take them on, and that's what they like to do before they ever buy a business. Anyway, what they do is they just see if they can survive Amazon, and if they can survive, then that's their modus operandi. They've done that all over the world, so they won't come in and say, "I would like to buy you," because they're going to pay top dollar. They're going to come in and see if they can knock us off and beat us up a bit,
Or wear you
and
down a
then
bit.
weigh you down, yeah,
Yeah.
and then they might just take you out. They did that with the book depository in the UK. They were going against each other for some time, and in the end, they just bought them and got rid of them. And well, didn't get rid of them, but they became part of the Amazon fold. So it could happen here, where I won't rule it out. At this stage, we've had no approaches from Amazon. We don't expect them to be approaching us now that they're getting ready to set up themselves. So I, I actually think it's smarter for someone who is trying to um, shore up their own position against Amazon, who's a billion-dollar retailer, a multi-billion-dollar retailer, to be looking at companies like ours who have been successful, because they're the ones that have got more to lose. They're the ones that have got quite a big investment and stake and history in their own um, um, infrastructure and profits and shareholders. So yeah, I would have always thought that somebody else who has got a digital mindset, who's realizing that we have to transition, would be I was expecting some other retailer to approach us, but we have had no approaches.
Yeah, and it seems like you're definitely coming from a position of strength too. Like you've built this market over, what is it, 15 years kind of thing to get it to where you want. You have all the systems and processes in place. Now it's just sort of how do you expand that
Yeah,
market share? Yeah, and not all businesses have met with success when they moved into other countries as well. Because recently, in a retail perspective, there was Target US moving into Canada, and I think it was like 12 months later was like a complete retail disaster, right?
right.
So it was a matter of putting those pieces together in the right order.
There's definitely, in Australia there are some differentiators, like the logistics in Australia is very different to Europe and the US, where those continents have lots of towns within 10, 15, 20, 50, 80 kilometers away from each other, and you kind of jump from town to town. So the logistics actually can be well funded by a network of drop-offs and pickups and things that happen throughout those. In Australia, you've got two very big cities, a lot of distance between each city, and there's not much more in between. So Amazon is coming in to a market where the logistics is going to be very,
It's going to
very
be
different.
very different.
But
Yeah.
last mile logistics here in Australia is actually very expensive.
More so than they might reckon.
Yeah.
How do you so what's next? Like we talked a little bit about evolving the digital experience. How are you going to continue to grow the retail side of things, the digital side of things going forward? Like what's next 5 years? Let's obviously consider that you've got competitors coming and going, but what are you going to be focusing on to kind of keep elevating your business in the digital space?
One of the things I'm going to answer that question a little bit um, oddly or in reverse is that Booktopia has been is the only company ever to make the BRW the Fast 100 in Australia for seven times. So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
that's that's year on year growth, quite significant year on year growth, because you can make it one or two, three times, four times because you're growing, but eventually you hit some sort of point where you just simply can't get that 40% growth to make the list again. Mm-hmm. And the way that we've been able to operate or get those kind of results is that I focus on what increase I'm looking for in the coming month. So, for example, it's the first week of May. So, what sort of increase on last year's May am I looking for to drive the business forward? And I've been doing that for over 13 years. The reason why I do that is that every month in the book industry, maybe other industries are different, has its similar cycle. So there could be Mother's Day, Father's Day, the start of the university year, school year, public holidays, Christmas. So it's about being a certain percentage higher this May than last May, and therefore by doing that you have an end in mind. So you've set your target, then you start to come up with ideas how you can actually hit that target. So your strategies, rather than thinking, oh, what can we do to build our business? It's like, no, what number do we have to hit? We've got to hit that number. Right, okay, we better do this. We might need a sale here, maybe a free shipping offer. Are there any new big books coming out? If we held more stock, if we tweak the pricing. So you have the end. So we've grown because we've had the end in mind for each month, each quarter, each year. We've got the end in mind, and we just focus on that. So a lot of the growth, when you ask how you're going to grow your business, comes out of that setting that horizon point and then going, that's where we're heading. Now, what have we got to do to get there? And for us, what's worked for us in the past is holding more stock, tweaking our pricing algorithms, promotions, um, targeting new genres, focusing on academic, the business channels. There's quite a few things that we've focused on that to build our business. We advertise obviously on Google, and we've got our affiliate programs. We've got our academic program that we work strongly in. So there's a number of areas that we will focus on, but at the same time, having the end in mind has been really empowering for all of us.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. That's some great advice. Just one final question before we wrap up, hopefully. um, in terms of some of the sort of I guess let's talk about big data. A lot of the companies out there in sort of a position like yours, like Amazon, like Facebook, they use a lot of this data to basically sell us more, which personally I don't think that that's a big deal because I've kind of signed into it. How do you sort of define those data patterns that would say allow you to sell more products to the same people, or are you looking at selling your product to different people based on more behavioral type interactions, or just that they bought book A so therefore they might like book B type thing? How do you sort of put that together?
Yeah, look, the big data project is very important to us. In books, it's bigger than you can ever imagine because there's 27 million active titles, books that are out there right now, of which we reject 7 million because they are either no longer available, or we just don't think that they're worthy. The quality of the book is not good enough. So we ingest 20 million, and of the 20 million we ingest, we only display 5 million on our website. So a lot of data. So some of the things that we are working towards, for example, I can tell you who's about to have a baby because they bought pregnancy books. I can tell you who's in fly fishing. I can tell you who's into powerlifting. I can tell you who's trying to learn Italian. I can tell you who's about to have a cruise on the Mediterranean based on the fact they bought a book about that. So there's a lot that we know about our customers. And although we haven't exploited that as much as we can, there are tremendous opportunities in there. In fact, we know more about our customers probably and their lifestyles and their families than Woolworths or Coles or Walmart, any of these big department stores. Amazon would know the same. I'm sure Amazon really understands this, and not only can they tell you that someone's about to have a baby. Well, they bought diapers.com, so they can also sell them the nappies, and so that data modeling is absolutely massive for us. So we know there's opportunity there. We do want to do more. We are doing more. We're investing in that at the moment. So that is really in its infancy in terms of really making relevant and customer centric use of it, in terms of, like, you don't want to be bombarding them. You don't want them to feel like you're watching their every move. You want to be adding value through understanding how they what they're interested in.
Otherwise, it gets too creepy.
That's right.
There's probably that creep factor. It's like, oh, how do they actually know that? You kind of have to stay above that line. Mind you,
Well, I think there was that story in Google a number of years ago where the father worked out that his teenage daughter was pregnant based on the ads that he was being served.
oh really?
She'd been using Google to do searches on pregnancy tests or abortions, or I forget what it was, but something. Yeah. And he found out because of that.
Oh, really? Okay. So, but you can use it for good, though. You can help suggest a new title that they might enjoy.
Yeah, for us, it's very lifestyle driven. So if someone's into fly fishing and we know there's a new fly fishing book, or maybe a partner of ours might be doing tours to New Zealand for fly fishing. For someone who's into fly fishing, that's just what they want to find out about. That's their passion. And I think that's really important to understand what people's passions are. And it could be from an education point of view as well. Someone might be studying law. Someone might be wanting to be a doctor. And so what can you put in front of them that actually is relevant and going to make an impact on their lives?
Yeah, I guess that's the key, is making it relevant to them. And then you can sort of build that relationship. Do you feel that that's going to grow a lot, not just for you, but for other companies in the digital space as well?
So my deputy CEO was at Shop Talk in Las Vegas in the last couple of months, and personalization was one of the important streams that was being talked about. Artificial intelligence as well, but it's that being relevant. It's to the consumer, so they don't switch off.
Excellent. Oh, cool. No, that's some great insight going forward. So, it's like I said before, it sounds like you're coming from a position of strength to continue on, even despite Amazon coming in. So, congratulations. Really want to thank you for your time, Tony. Really appreciate you scheduling this, and I know we've had a little bit of a fun time getting it actually cemented in place. But thank you so much. What's the best way to contact you? Are you open to that, or?
Look, from obviously I only have so many hours in the day, but people do reach out to me via LinkedIn, and I'm always may not be on LinkedIn every day, but I'll be answering messages. So if anyone is interested, I do get requests for mentoring, but I simply do not have the time right now to mentor. But if anyone has any questions, Tony Nash, Booktopia, LinkedIn, search on Google, you'll come up with my listing, and you can put out a request for contact.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you again, Tony. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you online. Thank you very much for listening to Breaking Digital, the podcast for smart entrepreneurs wanting to become true digital leaders in their industry and to own online. If you have any comments on the program, please feel free to connect on Twitter @DoyleBuehler with the hashtag #OwnOnline. I would really appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your network, as I'm sure they will get some value from it for building their successful business online as well. You can find the resources that we talked about, as well as the transcript and full podcast for download on thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast or on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I will see you online.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Digital with Doyle Buehler. While he goes and makes a sandwich, you can find all of the notes, links, and details on this podcast by visiting thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. Go on and click that now. www.thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. I'll definitely click that. If you'd like a free copy of the book, The Digital Delusion, How to Overcome the Misguidance and Misinformation Online, just send an email to doyle@thedigitaldelusion.com. See you online.